Hey folks, welcome back to a Farming Simulator 25 tutorial video, and we're going to be looking at integrating the CCM production pack properly into a map. There is a prefab pack that is available on the DSA Discord. I'll show you where to download that in a bit, and then we're going to walk through the instructions that are included with it to integrate it into a map. I'm on Rotterdam Island. It's a map that I've played a little bit in the past, and I kind of picked it at random to use as an example to install it onto. I'll talk about doing it with this map. I'll talk about some of the things that you might see that are different on other maps and some of the pitfalls that you might come across as you do it yourself as we go through. If you come across problems as you're doing it, my advice is generally to start again. So before you start doing any of these edits to the files of the map that you're going to edit, back a copy of it up, copy it somewhere, or remember where you downloaded it from. I would suggest you just take a copy of it, stick it somewhere else on your computer, so that if you make a mistake, you can always go back. You shouldn't do any damage, but it might be worth doing that with your save game file as well if you've got a currently active save. Now, we're going to be adding fill types and tippable piles into the save, so that might cause issues with things you've got on the ground. It shouldn't, but it might, so bear that in mind as well. So back your save up, back your map file up before you start, and I take no liability for if you mess things up. You're doing this at your own risk. So let's get out to Discord first. You will need Discord, I think, to download this prefab. It's the place that I've found it. I don't know if it's anywhere else, but anyway, that's where you'll need to join the DSA Discord. Pre-warning, mostly in German, but you really only just need to download the file from there, and I will link you to the post. You might need to scroll a little bit, but I think the link that I'll give you will directly link you to it. So let's jump out of FarmSim. So step 2, after you've backed everything up, if you're not sure how to do that, genuinely, this is probably not for you. If copying and saving files is not something you're comfortable with, don't do this, okay? If you're offended by me telling you that, don't watch this video, because I'm not going to help you if you get upset because it went wrong. Anyway, DSA Discord, I'll include a link to the post. You're looking for this channel. So under DSA mods support, there is an LS25 CCM prefab. LS25 because it's predominantly a German channel, and they call it Landesforsch, the German for farm sim. Okay, cool. I'm not going to try and butcher the German. And at the top of that page is a post about the prefab. There are English instructions in the prefab, don't worry. And I'm going to do the video in English for you. Scroll down to currently, I think, the second post. It's the version that I've been using. And you'll see a zip file to download. Click on that. It'll open a web browser and download it for you. And that's what we're going to be using to do this job. So once you've downloaded that, it'll download it into probably your downloads folder. Grab that, head over to your, assuming you're on PC, this should be in Documents, My Games, Farming Simulator 25. That's the same if you're playing on Steam or on a Giants copy. Go into your mods folder. I have multiple mods folders just because of how I do things. It's likely to be, if you're playing normally, mods. For me, for this tutorial, it's a mod CCM, but it'll probably be just mods. Unless you're doing something different, and then copy in the prefab pack. So this is the name of that prefab. We're going to need a couple of tools to do this. We're going to need something like 7-zip, and we're going to need a text file editor. I like Notepad++. You can just use the built-in Notepad that's included with Windows. So either of those will work because we're going to want to unzip the prefab and we're going to want to unzip the map. As I said, before you started this, you will have found where your mods are anyway, because you will have backed up your map and back up your save game file. So your save game files are these guys, whichever number save you're using. Take a copy of the whole folder, put it with the backup of your map. Right, so the next step is to unzip the map and the prefab. So let's right click on the map for Windows 11, show more options, 7-zip, and extract to FS25, whatever your map name is. And that will create a folder with that in. I'm just going to delete the zip file. You might want to copy it somewhere else. And then with the prefab pack, we're going to do the same thing. So right click on it, show more options, 7-zip, extract to long file name. And I'm just going to delete that as well. And first off, we're going to go look in the map. And we've got a couple of things that we're looking for. Different maps will have different structures. Quite often, a lot of this will be in a subfolder. And it will vary depending on the map. What you can do is open up the mod desk and have a look in here. And it will tell us we're looking for one of the useful files is the map.xml file. And this line here tells us that it's in the config folder. So to save us hunting around, we found it. So let's close that back up and go into config. And actually that's shown us where most of the probably useful files that we need are, but map is a file that we are going to need to have open. So we'll open that up and we'll keep it handy. We're then going to go back up to the mods folder and we're going to go into the CCM prefab. We're going to open the README file. It's actually a very good README file. It's very helpful. You might not actually need my video if you're comfortable. But there are a few things that we need to do, a few steps that we need to take. Predominantly, it's around adding bales in, but it's also about adding some of the fill types. If you want to, editing the feeding to include CCM, that kind of thing. So we're just going to work through it step by step. You'll notice that there's two scenarios listed. One, the easiest one, is that the files that we need to copy across don't exist, because that means you can just copy the files that are in the prefab into the right place, hook them into the map.xml file, and you're probably good to go. If the files already exist, you don't want to overwrite them, as it says here. Never overwrite the files. Instead, what you're going to want to do is open up both files and copy across the right bits. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that here or not, because I've not looked in great detail. I've just downloaded the map and we're going to work through it together. So we'll see what we see, folks. Let's have a look, shall we? So the first thing is to look at copying files, and we've got this underscore maps folder, and you'll see there's bales, there's configs, there's fill planes, and there's textures. And the structure of this map is a little different, so we'll see how we get on. Bales is the first one we're going to copy across, and in here are the round bales for CCM for the baler that's included in the production pack mod. So we're going to grab this and we're going to copy it. We're going to head back to the map and we're going to copy that just here, because there isn't a bales folder. Let's check not in there either. So we're good. We'll go back up into maps. We'll look in config in a second. In fill planes, there are a bunch of specific fill planes that we need. So we're going to copy that folder. So it's Control C to copy. Should have said that. Or you can right click on it and select copy. Back into the map, and there is not a fill planes folder. So we're going to copy that in. We're good so far. If there is one, what you can do is just copy and it will place those subfolders into the fill planes folder. You should be okay. So we go back into maps and we've got textures. And there's some HUD icons. So we'll go grab the textures folder, go back in. There is a textures folder, but should be okay to just come back up here, press Control V to paste, or you can right click and select paste. And then if we go into the textures here, you'll see our HUD icons have appeared. So that has worked. So if we then go back to the CCM prefab pack, we've done everything except the config folder. And there is a map bit here. And this gives you some of the XML that you need. Some of. The links might be slightly different. So, but what we're going to do is go into config. And you'll see there's 4 files, and we're going to do these one at a time. The reason is that we need to check to see if they exist in the other one first. The easiest way to do this is actually in Windows 11, you can have tabs open for your file explorer. And I would just open up a second tab and have that showing the same thing. So what you can do is just copy the path and copy it into the new tab. And then we can go back up here. I'm cutting some bits out because I don't like showing my name in everything, and my name shows up in the file path. If that bothers you, tough. I'm trying to make it easier for me to edit things. So we go into config and you'll see, so this is the map config. This is the config for the extension. You can see we've got an animal food in both. Sorry, let's just close that down for a second. Now the animal food in this one does have some CCM bits in it. So if you want to include that, you'll need to include it. So we've got CCM in the feeding for the cows. We've got CCM in the feeding for the pigs. And we've got some protein grist, and we've got it in the TMR as well, and the pig food. The problem is, wrong window, our map also has an animal food file. So we're going to need to make some changes. You could decide to just overwrite it if you don't want what the map has, but if your map has custom crops, then this is going to look quite different. So to just make the simple changes that have been made here, we can see that CCM has been added to the silage line. So we just make a space, put it here. If we look down, CCM's been added to the first line of pig feed. So we can add that in there. We've got some grain grist with the wheat and barley. So let's add that there. I might not make all of the same changes, but as long as it's in the spirit of no changes to the horse feeding or the chicken feeding. And then we've got some changes to pig food. We've got, I'm just going to copy them from here. We've got CCM here. And then we've got protein grain grist in the second one. And protein grist in here. And then in TMR, we add CCM into the silage category. Again, there we go. So if we now save that, that's that file updated in the map. So that one's done. If we look over here, there isn't a Bales file. So we can just copy this straight across. Good. The density height types file, I'm going to check in our maps.xml. Just quickly, I'm just going to search for density. Said, don't do that. So I think we're good to copy that one straight into here because it doesn't exist. Let's just have a quick look at that one. Yep, so that's just adding in the piles on the ground for the new fill types. So let's grab that guy, copy that into the map bit, and then we've got fill types. And if we go here, we do not have a fill types file. Let's just double check in here. If we look down for, let's just search for fill types. So the game is using the default fill types file. So if we go back to here, copy this and copy this into here. So that's added all of the files across. So now we need to register the bales. So we need to open the bales.xml file in your map. So we've just added that in. Make sure that the paths are right. So for what we've done, if we open this guy up, and it's these paths that we need to check. So if we go to our map, and we've put the bales right at the top level. So we probably want to do that. Because it's not in a subfolder. Now, a lot of maps, what you'll have is you'll have the mod description, the overview, the preview, and maybe the icon. And then you'll have a maps folder, which will have pretty much everything else in it. One sec, let me just grab you an example. So this is Maypole Farm. So this is what another mod map would look like. And then under the maps folder, you have all of the subfolders. And then you've got a maps US folder, which has the config. And this is where you'd start to copy everything into potentially. What I would actually do is all of the files and folders from the prefab. So things like the textures and the bales and things, I would copy into here because they're all set up to be in this maps folder, except for the XML files, which you want to put in the config folder. So if we were doing it for Maypole, the bales, so if we were doing it for Maypole, I would copy bales, fill planes, and textures into this folder under maps. And you'd then go into maps US and config, and you would add the XML bits. But for the example that we're doing, we don't have those subfolders. So for Rottimer Island, we're straight in. Our bales folder is straight here. So I think this is the correct path. I'm doing this live, so learn with me, folks. So that's our bales path set. The animal feeding, I'm just going to use as was included in the XML file. If you're curious about more editing animal feeding, you could go check one of my FS22 Maze Plus videos. It's all very similar. So let's save that. The next thing we want to have a look at is mixer wagon effects. And this is if you're using, like we have, because we've used the animal food.xml. If you don't want to get an error in your log file, you need to update the effects for the mixer wagon. If you're not worried about errors in your log file, you could skip this step. But we're going to work through it. So if we go, we're looking for to see if the map has a custom motion path effects file. It's probably unlikely that we will have one of those, I suspect. So to check that, again, we're going to go back to our map file. And what we are looking for is the motion path effects. And we can see here that so if you see this $data thing, that means it's using a base game file. And what the instructions tell us to do in that case. So important, if it still points to the base game one, starts with $data, you must first copy the original file into your map folder and update the path to point to your local file. So that's what we're going to have to do. So you need to go find your installer farming simulator wherever you've got it installed. I'm just going to go find mine. So mine is on my C drive because I have a Giants version. If you are on Steam, I think you can right click on it and ask it to show you the installed files locations. Yeah, so once you've found your install, we're going to want to go into data and then effects. Scroll down, you'll see this motion path effects.xml file. We're just going to want to copy that, come back across to the config for the map and paste it in. And then we are going to want to go back to our map.xml file. And we're going to want to update this. We are also going to need to update our Bales path in here. There's some bits that we're going to have to pass through in terms of pathing for things. But what we will do, so we know that we are using a custom animal food. So we'll just grab the path for that in our case. And we will just put that in for our motion path effects. And I'm going to correct the bales.xml path as well. And you can see that's gone very wrong. So the nice thing about using Notepad++ is it auto formats your XML. So if you make a mistake, the auto formatting goes wrong, because things like quotation marks, slashes, closing out brackets is really important. So, but I'm going to do a pass through all of the files that we've done anyway to make sure that everything's pointed in the right place. So we've got our local motion mixer. No, we've got our local motion path effects file. And now we need a mixer wagon effects file, because that's the one we need to edit. So we also need to grab that. So we go back into effects and we go to mixer wagon and we grab that file. And let's copy that in as well. And then we go into our motion path effects file and we find where the mixer wagon is. And then we fix the path for that. And what we do is we go to map and let's go like that. And like that. And we can close that and that should be good. And then we need to edit the mixer wagon effects.xml file. So we now just follow the instructions here. So we need to add CCM, grain grist, and protein grist to the end of the fill types attribute, which is this one. We need to add CCM to the end of the silage line. We need to add grain grist and protein grist. Where are we? Down here to the mineral feed. Come on, go away. Line. Like so. We go. And we save that. And we can close that. And let's close that. So, I didn't worry particularly about L10N entries when I did it, but we probably should. So, because you miss out on some translations. So we're going to have a look at the language bit, just so we don't have errors, I guess. Depending on your map, this might be a bit different. If when you look in the map, you see a translations folder, within that, there'll be some files. You can probably add the relevant bits of this to that. You will need to expand K and V to match whatever's in there. So copy these in and fill out the rest. Rotterdam Island doesn't have a translations bit that I can see because I don't think it has anything that needs them. So I'm going to add them to the mod desk. So we're going to go in here, and I've found another mod which has, which I've now closed, which was really helpful, which had language bits. I'm going to reopen that, and I'll show you how to do it that way. Yeah, so I just picked a random mod that I happen to have, which is extended cruise control. Ignore the particular mod; it really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to copy a bit of that text across into the mod desk for Rotterdam Island. We need the closeout part as well, which is this guy. So that gives us our full little block of text. There might be a more efficient way of doing this, you know, but I'm doing it this way because it gets us what we need. So fill type CCM. There's only 4 of them as well, so I figured this was, you know, a relatively easy way of completing the process. Get rid of the rest of those. So there's probably a much neater way of doing this. I hadn't actually planned to do the translation bit, but having seen it, I figured we should do everything, you know, try and do it properly. That's what I'm doing for you. Grab the other bits. Okay, so crushed corn. Obviously, if you wanted to change these to have your own localized translation of what they were at this point, you could. You know, you could, yeah, I don't know. But that's what we're going to put in, and we're going to save that. Now, our map file, I want to go through now and make sure that all of the links are correct. So let's have a quick look at what we've updated. Now, I know we've added a fill types file and we've not linked to that, and we've added a height types file and we've not linked to that. So we need to look at those, and probably what we should do is compare it to here. So we've got our animal food one, let's check that. And that is linked to a local file, so we're good there. We've got our Bales, and we know already that we've done Bales, but Bales is linked to bales.xml, so we're good there. We've got this one, so we need to add both of these in. So I'm going to highlight them, copy them with Control-C, pick a spot in the file, paste it in. Then we need to get the path right. Now in our case, that is just config. Depending on your map, if we think about when we looked at Maypole, that would have been maps/mapus/config. So bear that in mind. If you get the path wrong, you're going to get errors. And that's why I was saying, if you're not comfortable with copying files to different places, you're probably not going to be comfortable with some of this, making sure paths are right and stuff. So I think that's all okay. We've got our motion path effects. Additional files, we're not overwriting anything there. It's fine. Yep, so I think that's okay. So we'll save that and close that. That can go away. That's our updated animal food, so we'll get rid of that. That's our updated Bales file. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. And we'll get rid of that. And I think we are good. So this can go away. Ultimately, we will want to rezip this. But for now, we're just going to load it up and see what happens. Okay, so let's load in. We are going to want to check our log file once we've loaded things in. The first step is, does it actually load the save? If it doesn't, that probably tells us we've made some mistakes. But we'll find out in a moment. It might be that we need to actually test stuff and make sure stuff works. Step one, we're good. How do you check for errors? Now, the easy way is to hit this button, which is the backtick key. The backtick key brings up the debug prompting as the game loads, and you'll see any red text as the game's loading. If you see red is bad. And I would recommend when you're editing the map, don't do the edits with your active save and all of your mod folder, because your mod folder might be full of mods that throw errors, and that will make it hard to see if it's just the changes you're making to the map or if you've got loads of shitty mods in your mod folder. So start with the minimum that if you've got a map like this which has required mods, you'll need those, but don't have all of your mods in the mods folder. That will probably help. But what we're going to do is I'm going to quit out and we're going to have a look in the log file. Right, so we're just going to check the log file. There are a couple of errors in there, so go back out to your My Games Farming Simulator 25 file. It's better if you open this in Notepad++. So we're going to right click on it, show more options. Actually, we didn't need to do that, but anyway, edit in Notepad++. It's better. And you will see that there are a few errors that we have. There's some we don't need to worry about. I'm going to scroll back up and show you firstly this guy. You don't need to worry about the fact that it can't open the prefab. It shouldn't be able to open the prefab. That's fine. And then the one we have down here, I've fallen foul of this a couple of times. And so I'm going to show you how to fix it. So it's basically that the game can't open the i3D file for the new Bales because we need to edit another set of files. And I forgot about it this time. So it's likely that you'll need to do this, and so let's go do it. And I've actually got them open because I'm recording this the second time because I hadn't switched my recording mode. So, but I'll show you where they are. So if we go back into the mods folder, into the map, into wherever you copied the bales to, into round bales, and then in each of these there is an XML file, and we need to edit this line, this path, so that it matches up with where these files are. So for this map, we just get rid of the maps bit. And this is one of the reasons that I advise, if your map is a bit like Maypole, where it has the maps and then the maps US subfolder, you copy everything into that maps level, because then you won't get this problem, because that's how this is all set up. You won't need to do this step. But if you copy things into that subfolder of maps/maps US, you would then need to insert the maps US bit of the path rather than deleting things. So if you were doing Maypole, it would look something like map US slash. It would look something like that. But in our case, it needs to look like this. So if we close those now, we should be good. So let's reload the game, and we should now be error free and good, apart from the fact that we've got the prefab in the folder and it can't load the prefab. So we're back in the map now. We should be good for errors in terms of what we can test. Just loading the game up. The next thing to do is to test some stuff. So I'm going to buy a couple of bits of kit. Things that we really want to be looking at testing are the feed mixer and the baler. Make sure they both work. So let's quickly buy a TMR mixer. Lease a TMR mixer, because it doesn't matter if it's lease or owned. And we want to be able to put some of the new product in. I think we can do that through the means of a front loader and a bucket, thanks to Easy Dev. So let's do that. Or telehandler even, doesn't matter which one it is, you'll be just fine. And then we want a bucket, and you'll be just fine. So let's very quickly F12 in a hay bale and a silage bale. We will become very strong. Chuck those in. Jump in here. And I would recommend you do your own much more thorough testing. And if you've got errors, it's going to be things like paths are not right. So you're just going to be looking at trying to fix those pathing issues. Did we allow CCM to go in here? I hope, well, protein grist, hopefully we did. I don't think we did, actually. It might have just been CCM. So let's change that to be CCM. And we're seeing that our icons and stuff are working as well. Well, let me tip that in. Why not? Why do you not want to let me tip in CCM? I'm very confused. That would be why, because it does not add, although it adds them to the animal food, does not add them to the mixer. So something to watch out for, I guess. So interesting that it doesn't do that. We can address that, I'm pretty sure, by going mixer wagon. I think that should sort it. Let's close that and close. That just shows to me that you shouldn't assume. I had assumed because the animalfood.xml added those to the feeding that it would add them to the vehicle. It would add them to the fill types as well, but it didn't. So anyway, there we go. So that should be good. Yep, no errors. So awesome. So I think that's okay. There might be more testing that we need to do to actually test the motion path effects, but for me, that's good enough. Let's get this guy out of the way. This comes with the map. So the last thing I want to test is the baler. The baler is built into the mod pack. And something in particular with this, you need to select. Oh, that is on. You need to put on the silage additive tank for it to work with CCM. At least, yeah, so we need 120 horsepower to run that. Okay. Fair enough. That's kind of good. If we go into here, we need this guy. Yeah, at least that. I believe we need some of that for it to work. We need a big tractor to run to mill. Yep, that'll do. I know, shock is Porter Deutz, where's Lisa Deutz? Let's get rid of the turn that, sell that. Let's return that. Let's sell that. We'll make space for stuff. Yeah, I just want to make sure that this baler actually works. So if you're trying to do this and you're struggling, my standing advice is start again. The whole thing with all of the paths for where to put everything and stuff, if you're struggling with that, if you can, put everything in a folder that is matched up to what the prefab wants. So that is, 1 second, let me remind myself what that should be. Sorry, please talk amongst yourselves for a second, folks. So I would recommend that if you're struggling, put everything into, where's it gone? If it doesn't exist, create a folder called maps in the top level of the map area. So like for me, that didn't exist. So I could have created a folder called maps and put everything in there. And that would have meant I didn't get that error with the baler i3D file. Which would have saved me a little bit of, faffing. So if you're struggling, if you've followed through the tutorial and you're struggling a bit, that might be kind of step one of starting again. Would be to when you go through it next time, create, if the map doesn't have a maps folder, create that folder and put everything in there, because that will probably make it a bit easier for you in terms of getting all the paths right, because everything everything that's created within the prefab assumes that path, so it'll just all kind of work a little bit smoother. Yeah, so I'm just going to grab now an auger wagon. That'll do. And a tractor for that. I know I should have set all this up beforehand, but that would have required me to be organized, and I was not. I had meant to record this yesterday, but yesterday when I finished work, I was exhausted. So I'm now recording this much later than planned on Friday. So yeah. Here's what it is, folks. But this is how you should be testing your implementation anyway. So, probably worth me showing you this. But anyway, so we dump that in there. We turn that on. We turn that on. We start dumping that in there. We turn that on. We go into here because we've got stupid settings on. Game setting. We turn that off. So you're on. You're full. Just restart you. Turn you back on. Start you emptying. There we go. And we should start getting some bales, I believe. Once we've milled some stuff, and then obviously you can ferment some CCM. I'll do a separate video on the actual mod because this has been quite a long video, but quick peek, no errors, we're good. Yep, so we seem to have successfully integrated the bales and stuff. So I guess what we could do if we wanted is let's just do a thing. I mean, turn the mill off because the tractor won't move with the mill on. I dump to the ground. Yep, and we get a pile on the ground, and we don't get any errors. Awesome. So I'm going to call that a success. As I said, the things that you need to be careful of doing this are the locations that you copy things, and then the paths that you put in the map.xml file to tell the game where you've copied things to. And then the other error that you might see is that Bale i3D file. I've been hit by that twice now. The good way to mitigate that is to put stuff, when you're copying stuff, to put the things from the prefab into the map. Is it map or maps folder? Sorry, it's been another long day here in my world. So let's just double check that again. To copy things into the maps folder, which a lot of mod maps will have. If there isn't one, you can create it. If you don't know how to do that, you can Google it. It's not difficult. And if your map has a maps folder and then subfolders with, so you might see maps and then map US or map EU. Because quite a lot of the time modders copy stuff from the base game maps, and then you'll see all of the subfolders under that. I would recommend that you put the stuff from the prefab in the maps folder, so it'll be separate from the stuff that was included in your mod map, but that will make the linking easier. The only bits that I wouldn't do that for are the XML files, because otherwise you'll end up with duplicates and you want those to be single files. So those XML files that we were working with, the animal food, the density height types, that kind of thing, you need to put in the place where the map has them if they exist. So you need to do the edits, or if they don't exist, put them where the rest of the XML files are, because that will be easier for you, I think. Yeah, but hopefully this is helpful. If you have problems, my advice is always start again, because step one was back everything up, so you can go back. And I hope once you've done that, you enjoy playing with this awesome mod with all its features. If you enjoyed the video, help me out, click the like button. Comments, questions, suggestions, leave them down below. I will endeavour to answer questions, but it is very difficult to fix your problems in YouTube comments. And YouTube will often filter out comments that have things like error messages and that kind of thing in, because it doesn't like that kind of punctuation and stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you to the patrons and the YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome.